Hello everyone, welcome back to Studio Me, another video tutorial. In this tutorial we are going to take a look what is radius and how does it radius work, and in the end we are going to configure small lab into Cisco Packet Tracer. So radius stands for remote authentication dial-in user service. It's a networking protocol that provides centralized authentication, authorization, accounting management for users who use network services. So why we use radius? So we use radius for a couple of different reasons. Number one, for centralized management. So think about, for instance, in a large organization, you have a multiple access point. Instead of configuring each device with a separate access control, radius server allow administrator to manage user credential access policy from one central location. Security. It provides variety of security authentication method can be integrated with other security system. For example, if you wanted to allow user to have rather than traditional networking access, for example, it handle traditional username and password and challenge response authentication with the two-factor authentication. So that means username and password in a combination, you can use two-factor authentication with this radius server. Number three, it provides the scalability. It's suitable for growing organization. It can handle large amount of authentication as request, so you can add multiple servers to scale up. Interoperability, it works with various network devices, so it doesn't matter network device you purchase from HP, Cisco, Juniper, Dell, as long as they are standard networking device, you can use radius. Also, the another key feature is accounting. So it keeps track all the user activity is useful for billing purpose, auditing purpose, and reporting purpose. So who is using, who is accessing to the network device, it tracks every single things. So here's the top 5 use case for radius. That number one, for let's say you have an ISP, right? So ISP authentication. ISP can use this radius server for managing user login for internet services. In the context of internet or ISP service provider, radius is used to manage to login process for user trying to access to the internet. Then second one is the corporate VPN access. Controlling access to the corporate virtual network is VPN. Organization utilize this radius server to identify user who they are. Number three, if you walk into the Starbucks, right, you wanted to connect your phone, what do? You find out the Wi-Fi or SSID. How Starbucks does it? It's a large infrastructure. So if you want to authenticate guest user, you can use Wi-Fi authentication with the radius. So it will simply prompt username, password, or some sort of certificate to verify you. The number four is a network equipment access control. So authenticating user before they can access or configure network equipment like router, switch, you can use in this scenario also. Number five is like a BOID, that's been bring your own device, it regardless of, because of the lot of smartphone, there's a lot of laptop, tablet, anything you bring, radius can identify you in this scenario. So let's jump into the lab and let's see how radius work and how we can configure in Cisco Packet Tracer. So let's jump into our lab. So as you can see, this is our lab. Our router 1 is going to act as a client, and the top is, you see, the DNS server. We are going to configure as our radius client. So if I go to router 1 and if I run show run, and as you can see, I don't have any radius configuration, and also I don't have any TACX configuration. So router is pretty much empty. So now in the router, since it's empty, I'm going to close it out, and I'm going back to the Cisco Packet Tracer. If I click on the service, so you click on here and then come back to the AAA. Once you come here AAA, you'll see the first one is a service where it says 1, and then we have to type the router name, which is the client name, right? So AAA server is a client, and client is a router 1. And also the client IP address, which is 172.16.10.1, and the secret that we are going to authenticate between client and also the server. So I'm going to say, hey client, if you want to authenticate with me, you have to use Cisco 1234, and the radius and the port is 1645 by default. So I'm click add, And then you need to log into the Cisco router. So what's the username? You're going to use DT, and I'm going to define password is password 1234. Sorry, 123, and then I'm going to click OK. So this is the username we are going to using to log into the Cisco router in the packet tracer. So if I now I'm going back to the router, and we need to configure the AAA. So configure terminal, and then we have to say AAA, and then we have to enable. How do you enable? New model. That's what you type. So as soon as you type in the router, it's enable the AAA process. Then I will say AAA authentication. After authentication, I'm going to put the question mark. As you can see, I do have a called authentication. So if now I'm going to type authentication, then put question mark again, and let's see what's the couple of options you have it. So after putting a couple of options, you see that I just type AAA authentication login default group radius. So first is going to try to log in by a radius. If it's failed, then it will try local username and password. That's why I put the local after radius. Then is authentication enable default group radius on. So that is going to be prompt you enable password. You will see once you log in. The last one we need to configure, which is second option, the AAA authorization exact mode. And then exact mode, I'm going to keep it a default group, which is the radius. So whatever user come from the radius, the exact mode is going to be controlled from there. And I'll hit enter. If you want, you can put the local option. As you can see, it's up to you. It depends on how do you want to configure. But in my case, I'm going to keep it radius. The last one, since we have authorization, now we have to do the accounting. When user logged in, what they're going to do, right? So are you tracking them, like what kind of command they are running? So everything will be recorded. So after AAA, if you type accounting and shift question mark, you can see a lot of options, but in my case I'll choose exact default, and then it put shift question mark again. So there's the option start stop. So that means starting to stop, everything will be recorded. Right, there's another option called stop only. Is up to you, whatever you need it. So I'll put group, and the group will be radius, right? And if you want, you can add local also, but it's not required. So this is the three things we have configured: accounting, authorization, and authentication. So now let's set up the server key, right? We'll take a look how to configure server key. So if I go radius server and I put shift question mark, my case, I will tap the server IP, and then I will choose the key. So if I put key in here, and we already defined the key, Cisco password 123, I'll put the key, and then I'll put Cisco 123. So now router knows when he reach out to the radius server, hey, this is my key, this is my IP. So radius server now will identify, okay, you are my client. Yes, so you authenticate with me, and then I'll put the IP address 10.10.10, which is radius server IP address again. So now we have to define line BTO 0 to 4, and we have to tell line BTO, hey, do not authenticate by local username. Please use radius server. So now we have, if you put the shift question mark, you see the whole bunch of options. From here, we are going to choose login, and then shift question mark again. You see the authentication, choose authentication, and put the default. Default mean I'm going to choose the order of operation, first radius. And now we need to go to telnet, put the username DT, and put the password here, whatever we define in the radius server. And once you put the password, is going to be, now I'm going to type enable, is going to ask password and username again, because that's the condition I gave in the router for the AAA condition. As soon as I put there, and you will see that I'm in the Cisco router. So this is the short tutorial. Thank you.